this is Delbert McClinton, and you are listening to Icon Fetch.
Welcome to Icon Fetch, the web's premier music interview show. Now, here's your host, Tony Peters.
Welcome to Icon Fetch. I am Tony Peters. Bruce Janelle wrote and recorded one of the most iconic songs of the early rock and roll era with Hey Baby. A number one hit in 1962 featuring harmonica from Delbert McClinton. That one song has endured, being included in movies like Dirty Dancing, TV shows like Mad Men, and has been covered by many other artists as well. During his early success, Chanel had a chance to tour Europe, and not many people can say this, the Beatles opened up for him. Chanel has also written many hits on the country charts and continues to perform to this day. So, it's my pleasure to welcome into the show, Bruce Chanel. Bruce, how are you, man?
Oh, great. How are you, Tony? How are you folks doing?
We're doing great. We're doing great, man. It's good to talk to you. And so I understand you grew up in Texas, right?
Yes. I was born in Jacksonville, Texas. That's in East Texas.
Okay.
And then we moved to Longview, Texas, about 50 miles away. And in the war years, 1940s, my dad was moved to Dallas so he could work at Grand Prairie for the war effort there. He was a machinist.
Okay, all right. So if we go back, what would be your first musical memory? Did you have music around the house a lot, or was there kind of one specific thing that influenced you?
Yeah, all my family are singers, not professional, but they're all singers. We sang in church together and all that. So, yeah, we were all musical and sang together.
Nice. I mean, and you did country music kind of first. I understand that you actually played the Louisiana Hayride for a while, right?
Yeah, that was about 1958, I believe, somewhere in there. And I'd always had a little group together, friends from school or other people who came around to play, and over time it shifted different musicians, but I had a group called the Little Gentlemen. We thought that was a good name, and it would get us in with the moms at the teen dances.
Right, the Little Gentlemen, right.
And it worked. We got some good gigs. It was good, but it was like we had bass and drums, and I'd play guitar, and we'd have a lead guitar. And so we played a lot of dances and things like that getting started.
Now, you played the Louisiana Hayride, I mean, and that's kind of notorious for, there's a lot of legendary people that have kind of, would go in and out of that stage. Did you have a chance to meet some famous people along the way? And, did you get any pointers from any of those people?
Well, my brother and I had an old guitar my dad had traded for, and we'd had for about 15 years, and we'd beaten it all to pieces learning how to play on it and like that. And my dad asked me one day, he said, have you thought about going to the Louisiana Hayride? And I had a band. I couldn't take the band because they have their own band, So I said, well, yeah, I've thought about it, but my old guitar is kind of beat up, I'm going to have to get me another instrument. And the next week he came home with a new jumbo J200 Gibson guitar.
Woo! Man.
And he said, let's go to the Hayride this weekend. So I have three brothers, and they were busy doing other things. So my dad and my mom and I got in our old 50 model Ford and drove from Grapevine, Texas to Shreveport, Louisiana to the Louisiana Hayride at KWKH. Went to the station, and my dad, we went in, and my dad found the manager, Tillman Franks, and said, I brought my son down. I'd like for you to hear him sing. And he said, okay, I will in a few minutes. I'm busy, but I will get with you. So we waited, I guess, maybe 30, 40 minutes, something like that. And he came down the hall again. The next time we saw him, my dad's kind of an imposing fella. He's about 6 feet, weighed about 300 pounds. So he kind of blocked the doorway and just kind of, touched him on the shoulder, and he said, you will hear my son sing.
All right.
And Tillman laughed, and he said, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I just got busy. Come on in my office. So I took my guitar in, and I sang for him for about 30 minutes. He kept asking me for different songs, and I sang whatever I was doing at the time with the band, Elvis songs, cover songs, And he said, yeah, that sounds good. Can you be on the show tonight? And I said, yeah, I've got my jacket in the car. I had a jacket I'd wear to go on stage, you know. So I sang that night, and I stayed there. I'd go every week. I would catch the train. My dad would take me to the train in Dallas, and I would ride it to Shreveport and go to KWKH and spend the afternoon and do the show that night. Catch a train at 2:30 in the morning back to Dallas, and my dad would pick me up about 7 o'clock in Dallas.
Man, woo!
I got $16.50 a show. It cost me $1.50 union dues, $11.66 round trip on the train, and I had about $1.50. I got to meet everybody in the world. I got to meet Tex Ritter. I got to meet Ray Price.
Wow.
And, of course, Johnny Horton was a big star at that show at the time, you know, so he was on it every week other than if he was playing out somewhere, you know. So,
right.
But I got to meet him, and as a matter of fact, he signed as a witness on the contract that I signed with Tillman.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing. I mean, you know, you talk about how times have changed, how the fact that you and your dad could just knock on the door at a radio station and get an audience with somebody, you know? I mean, we live in different times, don't we?
Yeah, it is. It's so, and it's better in a lot of ways, and it's harder in a lot of ways because a young person has a hard time just walking into a big situation like that and saying, I want to sing, you know?
Right.
They say, yeah, sure, everybody wants to sing.
Right, sure. Everybody.
So you have to be lucky and find a sympathetic ear like Tillman that really liked my voice and he liked my singing and wanted to help. You know?
Right, absolutely. Now, let's flash forward a little bit. When you wrote Hey Baby, I look on the songwriting credits, and it's Margaret Cobb. Was that who was that?
Margaret was a dear friend of mine. I was working a young guy. I was working in Dallas at a place called Texas Tank, where they did steel fabrication. They made butane tanks.
Okay, all right.
My brother worked there, and he got a job for me there one summer. And there was a guy named Buddy Combs that I worked with. And Buddy said one day, he was a good guitar player, and we picked around a little bit at lunch. He said, my sister's a songwriter. I want you to meet her. And I said, yeah, okay, I'd love to. So I went with him and to meet his sister Margaret, and she was a real nice lady, beautiful woman, and she already wrote songs. She hadn't had any big hits, but she knew how to write a song. And we just started writing together and wrote probably, I don't know, maybe 20 songs together or something. And Hey Baby was one of those songs. You know?
Right. Now, what's interesting, a lot of people have pointed to how unique Hey Baby is because you stretch out the word hey. You know what I mean? It's like that's kind of unique. Was there another song that you had heard that on, or was that just kind of an idea you guys came up with out of the blue?
Well, it may have been, but it would have been subconscious because I try very hard not to copy anybody, but just the start of that song called for it, to hold out that word. But thinking back, there were other records that did that, and maybe subconsciously it clicked in my mind. I don't know, but
right.
You remember a song called Hey Little One.
Okay, yeah, all right.
It held out the word hey for a long time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and the Beatles obviously, you know, were influenced by that. You can hear that in like I Should Have Known Better. You know, John stretches the word I out in the same kind of way. So I should have known better with a girl like you. They're certainly influenced by that too.
He had said that the way that he would write, he'd find songs that he really liked and keep writing an idea towards something he liked about that song, not to copy it, but to capture the feel of it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, let's get back to Hey Baby here. I understand that. Was it kind of like an afterthought that you recorded that song? I mean, you recorded other songs at the session, right?
Yeah, I had been working with a fellow named Marvin Montgomery. And Marvin Smokey Montgomery was a famous banjoist back in the 40s and 50s. And he had a band he was operating at the time called the Light Crust Doughboys. And Bob Wheels' band from Texas was the first Light Crust Doughboys. And they campaigned for, I believe, a guy named O.K. Allen. I'm not sure about that. Maybe it's Pappy O'Daniel. It was way back in the 30s or something. But they'd say, pass the biscuits, Pappy, and it was sponsored by Light Crust Flour. And they'd make biscuits and hand them out to the crowd. And then they'd had flour barrels on the stage where people put donations for him to run for governor.
Wow.
And he won.
Wow.
He won. And so through the years, I think they were the longest-running country and western band probably in history for a long time. It's disbanded now, and all the members are gone away, you know.
Right.
But they had a show on WBAP in Fort Worth, Texas that came on at noon every day. And I remember when I was a kid laying under my mother's ironing board, kind of kicking around and watching her iron. She'd have it on that station, and we'd listen to that show. Never thinking that I'd ever have a chance to be on it, but I loved listening to music. And I got a chance to be on it through Marvin Montgomery. And Margaret Cobb was a friend of his. And he said, we need a young singer in the band. Would you come and sing with us? And I said, sure. So he and Margaret kind of became my managers, and we were writing together. And he said, look, we had sent some songs to Sid Nathan at King Records in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay, yeah.
And he put out a couple of records for us. Marvin had recorded for him for years before. And so he put a couple of records out, and nothing major happened, but he said, look, there's a guy in Fort Worth named Major Bill Smith. He's a retired major from the Air Force, but he dabbles in music, and I do sessions for him, and won't you take a couple of songs to him? So I went over to Bill Smith, Major Bill's house, on a Saturday, and I took Dream Girl I had written and Hey Baby with Margaret. So I played those for him, and he said, yeah, I like those songs. We'll record them next week. He said, but I'm doing a girl named Trudy Coleman, and I need a song for her. I need an answer to Hit the Road Jack, which was popular at the time.
Right there, yeah, they would do those answer songs. That was a big deal then. Yep.
Yeah, so I said okay, and I went home and I wrote him Come Back Jack, and took it back to him, and he liked it and cut it on Trudy, and then he called a session for me to do our songs. And that's the day I met Delbert at the studio. Delbert and his band, the Straight Jackets, they did backing on most of the demos that Bill was doing at the time. And so they're the band that he used. He liked the songs and set the date, and I went to the studio that morning and met Delbert and the guys. And funnily enough, the engineer on the session was Bob Sutherland, who was the engineer at KWKH in Shreveport.
Wow. Huh.
So I saw him, and I said, Bob, man, I hadn't seen you in a while. And he said, yeah, man. He said, we just got this studio rocking and everything. He said, y'all cutting something today? And I said, yeah, we're going to try. And he said, okay, man. So I showed Delbert and the guys the song on my guitar, showed them, this is the way it goes. And we practiced it, through a couple of times, going, and they kind of got the feel of it and everything. Said, okay, so we did a take. And they said, that sounds pretty good. Let's do it one more time. So we cut it again, and nobody had said, you play this and you play that. I trusted Delbert's playing. After I'd heard him play some, I just left it in his hands. And I didn't even have a part for that. I just opened up with singing Hey Baby, But he was clever enough that when it started around, he said, we first started, he said, let's let it go around for a couple of times in the front, and then you come in. I said, okay. Because I've been used to it. We wrote it to just, playing it around a couple of times and come in and singing, which made it a lot easier. And so he started playing that piece on the harmonica, and we cut it one time. Then they said, that sounds good, let's do it one more time. So we recorded it the second time, and Marvin Montgomery says, wait a minute, it needs a spine. We need a piano. Huh. So he came in and played the piano with us on it. And he did a really important part that I didn't discover for a long time. That's a really loose track. And when you put the piano, it plays strict bars in the part where it goes the first time up to D major. It goes da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Right, yes.
And establishes the melody, And then when you go down to the F sharp, it goes da-da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da. Dun, 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 dun. You see?
Right.
And with all that, together, it made a smooth record. So the third time we did it with the piano, Major Bill said, "I think that's it, guys. Come in, let's listen." So we did. We listened to it, and it sounded pretty good. And he called a friend of his named Bob Wolf and said, "I want to play you something." So he played it over the phone to him and said, "How do you like that, you cotton picker?" Everything was a cotton picker to Major Bill. And he said, "Oh, I like that." And Bill said, "Do you like it $500 worth?" He was wanting some promotion money, you know.
Right.
And Bob says, "Well, I really like it, but I don't know if I like it $500 worth." You know? So Bill says, "Okay, you cotton picker, it's a cotton picking smash."
Oh, man.
He hangs up. Then, like he always did, he'd get records pressed. Then he would take off in his little Corvair stack full of records and make every radio station in 5 states make sure they had a copy. And then, if he could, he would set up the interviews with artists and whatever, you know, to try to get some, you know, recognition for the record. And we got it added to the local stations. They started playing it. But I had been playing parties in school for years for all my friends around that Hurst, Bedford, Euless area, which is between Dallas and Fort Worth. So I had played at parties for hundreds of kids I was doing Hey Baby at the time too, because I had just written it and was singing it, and they really liked it. So when it gets on this local station in Fort Worth, KFJZ had a top 30, and they would have a battle of the records every week. And then the people would call in and pick which records should stay on and which records should not be on. So I was against A Little Bitty Tear by Burl Ives.
Okay, all right.
And Burl was the winner that week, so they said, "We've got a new Battle of the Records. Here's one by a local artist, Bruce Chanel, called Hey Baby," and they put it on. And the disc jockey came back and said, "Well, we have a winner by one vote. It's Burl Ives and A Little Bitty Tear." And that disc jockey told me, he said that switchboard lit up completely with calls waiting to come in. He said, every one of them said, "You're crazy." So he said, we went with Hey Baby.
That's funny. Wow.
So
now,
when it makes it on the local chart, then they'll play it every hour. And that way it got to be number one in some local areas, and finally spread out to Dallas and KILT in Houston. We made some pretty major markets that it was moving up in the charts. And so when it made number one in the local charts and it sold a lot of records, Mercury Records, Smash label, leased it from Bill Smith and took it worldwide from there.
So Hey Baby, when was when did you realize that this was going to be a bigger deal than just Texas? Do you remember like one particular city where Hey Baby broke and we're like, wow, we didn't see that coming?
Marvin Montgomery had been booked by an agency in Chicago called GAC, General Artists Corporation. And that's the only people that we knew. We didn't know anybody else. We didn't know William Morris or anybody. So since he had been there, he got in touch with them, and they started doing some bookings for me. In May of that year, I did a spring tour with Fats Domino, Brooke Benton, The Impressions, Gene Chandler, and just an array of artists, that did a tour. And we went from New York City to Houston, Texas on the tour. And this was in Trailways buses. They were seats. They weren't stagecoaches.
Wow.
It would make jumps like from, South Carolina, we would head out and go to Denver.
Oh, my gosh. Wow. And you're traveling on, it's not exactly luxury, right?
So you're just riding for ever how many hours to the next one.
Wow.
You go to the hotel, do the show that night, and if you're lucky, you get to stay the night. Otherwise, they'll load the bus and head out.
You did a lot of sort of sleeping, sitting up, I imagine, huh?
Oh, yeah, a whole lot. But it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed being on that show. They were great people. It was fun. I enjoyed getting to stand, 10 feet every night in the wings and watch Fats do his stuff on the piano, dip into that light microphone and sing,
Right.
It was just so great. And Brooke Benton, he sounded greater in person than ever on a record.
I bet.
He had so much warmth and personality.
Right. Now, this becomes such a big hit, not only in America, but Hey Baby goes all the way to number 2 in England, and you guys got an opportunity to go overseas for quite a few weeks, I think, right?
Yeah, when I finished that tour with Fats, I couldn't take the band. I really wanted to take Delbert and his band because they sound like the record, you know. But they wrote charts and had horns do the harmonica part, and it was passable, but it wasn't our record, you know.
Right.
And that's really what I missed. So when they finished that tour, I got back. They said they want you to come to England, and I said okay, but Delbert's got to go with me. I said, I can't do that. You know, Delbert's got to be there. That sound's got to be there, man. So we agreed, and so Delbert came with me, and that was in June. I think it was like June 2nd to July the 2nd.
Wow.
And we played clubs, and we played theaters, and they didn't have big concert venues like they have now. You know, the biggest place would be like an auditorium or something with maybe a few hundreds.
Okay.
Maybe 1,000 or so. But they didn't have, and not that we could have even filled up a big stadium at that time. The crowds weren't like that then.
Right.
You have so many more people now.
Sure.
And that's great. But so we did the tour. We did interviews, and at one of the interviews we met the Beatles and Brian Epstein. They were there to be interviewed too, and then we wound up playing together on some shows. We did one, New Brighton, Ballroom, I think was the name of it. It looked like an old castle or something.
Wow.
But as Delbert and I pulled up with our band that was playing with us, we looked at the crowd of cars out there and whatever, and we said, you know, there's something different about this one. They ain't all here just to see us.
Wow. And I mean, and the Beatles opened for you? I mean, is that true to that?
Well, actually, we closed for them.
Okay, all right, okay. It's semantics there, all right. I mean, and you had a chance. I mean, there's a picture on your website, brucechanel.com, of you with John and Paul and George, and it's early because there's Pete Best standing there with you and Delbert too, huh?
Yeah, Pete was their drummer, and Paul's brother took pictures of everything. He's got a book out called Michael Mack's Whites and Blacks Plus One Color is the name of the book. And it's all Beatles pictures from the beginning, you know. And he would just, you know, Little Richard and whoever they were playing on the show with, he'd get pictures of them with them.
Nice.
So we shared a dressing room, and John had asked Delbert to play some for him. And he, you know, noodled around on his harmonica and played, and John said, I really love that sound. He said, I play harmonica some, but he said, I've only got, you know, the button on it. And he said, I can't really get that sound, but he said, I do like it and want to use that sometime. So in that way, they were friends, and they hung out a little bit. Delbert said later, you know, that he'd have got to hang out with him some and that. But you know, they were just a band doing cover songs. They weren't doing their big numbers and like that. It was 2 years later before any of their records came out. That, you know, I Want to Hold Your Hand and Love Me Do and those records.
Right. Yeah. So it was early on, and I mean, you know, nobody had any idea. I'm sure not even the Beatles had any idea that they would be as big as they were. You know.
No, they didn't. But I know John wrote in a book. He said I had told the guys, you know, he said we're not going to America and be 14th on the bill.
Interesting.
So he said we're going to have a number one when we go.
Wow. Huh. Well, that's interesting. So, you know, Hey Baby goes up the charts, and then, you know, I mean, when you get success like this, sometimes that's where the pressure really starts, because then now you've got to try to repeat the success. You guys put out a record that had a real good sound to it. The Number One Man song, I mean, that was another song you wrote with Margaret, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, you got Delbert on harmonica, I think, as well on that. I mean,
yeah, we used the same band, Straight Jackets, and so out of the album, Smash thought that Number One Man was the closest to Hey Baby, so they put that as a single. But when it didn't dive up like they thought, I think it got up to like number 30, something like that. But there was no pressure put on or anything. It just, you know, started faltering a little bit. And from there on, it was harder and harder, you know, to come up with something to impress people.
I saw some footage of you doing Mr. Bus Driver on American Bandstand, so you got a chance to play bandstand then too, huh?
Yeah, the first time I did it in 62, when the record was a hit, I went to Philadelphia and did Dick Clark's show there. And he moved to California in 68, late 67, 68, because I had just gotten back from California, I think. I'd been living out there for a while. And met a lot of great folks. That's another story. Levon Helm and a bunch of people, we became friends in California.
Nice. Yeah.
When I got back to Texas, I called his home, and his dad answered, and I said I was trying to find Levon, and he said, Bruce said he's gone off with some guys that are going to try to make him up a band. So,
and sure enough,
said, well, thank you, Mr. Helm. I would tell him to give me a call or something.
Right.
So I'd get to see him periodically. He'd come to Nashville and play, and we'd go see him.
Nice. Yeah, he had a band for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. In 1971, Christine, I met in England, worked for Arthur Howe's agency that booked the shows that I did.
Mm-hmm.
And such a sweet person, and I got to know her, and so when I came back from that tour, we wrote back and forth, and then she came to visit the next year and stayed with my folks and myself for, that year. And then we got married in 71, and we've been married since then. We're still married.
That's fantastic.
And just having a great time, and she's such a great girl, She's just the best thing that ever happened to me.
So you met Christine in England then. That's great.
Yeah, she worked for the agency. She was an accountant for him. She kept up with Arthur's business for him. And she would explain the tours to the different people. They had Roy Orbison. They had all the big acts come, and then she would sit down and go over the books with them and that kind of thing, And that's when I got interested. I thought, oh, she's beautiful, But she wouldn't go out with me because she had worked in the publishing business since she was 16 for her uncle.
Uh-huh.
And she knew all those artists around London, and those rockers and everything would come in,
Right.
She said she wouldn't have anything to do with those dirty rotters.
Ah, okay. So it was a slow process of wooing her over then, right?
Yeah, well, a friend of both of ours at the agency that took me around on tour at places and things came back, and he said, you really ought to go out with Bruce. He's a nice guy. He's not like these other guys,
All right.
So he kind of broke the ice and got us started.
He put a good word in for you then, huh?
Yeah, it took me another year and a half there to get.
Wow.
It
All right. Okay. All right. That's great. Well, and it's fantastic. You're still married to this day. That's fantastic. So. Hey Baby has kind of continued to be in the public consciousness. I mean, it got included in Dirty Dancing. Was that a big surprise that here all of a sudden, Hey Baby's now, back as one of those songs that everybody's kind of singing along to in the 80s now?
Well, Tony, it's always a surprise. It's happened a few times. In 2000, I believe, I went to Germany. I was asked to come over there. They had a NFL European League. At the championship game in Germany, they had asked me to come and do the halftime. And I said, well, I can do that, yeah. And they said, all our fans sing your song, and it'd be great if you'd show up and sing with them. So I said, okay. So we did that. We had a week in Germany, and they treated us really beautifully. We had a great time, and at the halftime that Saturday, we went out to the stadium, and I was doing Hey Baby, singing with the record, like you do.
Right.
But it was echoing back so badly, I quit singing and started listening to them.
That's great.
And they were singing it like this. They would go, hey, hey, baby, ooh. 40,000 of them did that.
Wow.
And when they went, ooh, it kind of startled me. And then they'd say, ah. I want to know if you be my girl. And that was a lot of fun. But a disc jockey said to me that day, he said, we ought to redo Hey Baby with a modern beat and all that kind of thing, I think it'd go over. Well, there was another guy that heard that same thing that day, and his name was DJ Otzi. And he recorded Hey Baby, Ooh, Ah.
Ah, okay.
And I think he probably sold about 2 or 3 million records. I'm not sure.
Unbelievable. And that's he had a recent hit with that. So there it is, Hey Baby back in the spotlight again. That's
Jose Feliciano cut it back after I did and had a reasonable record with it. Then Ringo Starr cut it and had a reasonable record with it.
Now, I also noticed you're doing the Sandy Beaches cruise again with Delbert, right?
We've done it for about 20 years, maybe, something like that.
Wow.
At least 17 or 18, I'm
Right.
not sure. But
Right.
we came on about the second or third one, I think.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I've interviewed Delbert a couple of times on the show, and he talks about that, and he goes into each one of them like it's going to be the last, and he's always surprised that they do it again the next year. But, it doesn't sound like a whole lot of work. I mean, I'm sure you have to work a little bit, but, I mean, to be surrounded by all those great musicians. I mean, you got the Mavericks on it this year, Marcia Ball's on it, you said Delbert's on it. I mean, it sounds like a great time. And
The people that come, we've made friends with them over the years, and there must be, 700-800 people that, and most of them return year after year, and we've lost a lot of them along the way, but we all had a great time together,
Yep, that's fantastic. So, good deal. Well, hey, that sounds like a lot of fun too then. So, well, Bruce, it's been a pleasure talking to you, man. It's great stuff. You got some great stories, and it's glad to hear that you're still out there doing it. It's awesome. So,
well, I'll tell you what, I appreciate your time, Tony, and folks out there, thank you so much for listening and loving the music all the time. It doesn't matter where you're from, you're going to love listening to iconfetch.com. And thank you, Tony Peters, for taking the time, partner.
And you cannot sum it up any better than that. The great Bruce Chanel, what a kind gentleman he was. Great stories to tell. And, he and Delbert have both downplayed their influence on the Beatles and John Lennon and his harmonica playing. But I tell you what, it's there. That influence was definitely there and very important. And, you have a lot of artists that have had, albums and albums of great music, and that's great. But you know what? Equally important sometimes is the power of just one song. And Hey Baby was a great tune that just continues to live on to this day. So anyway, I'm Tony Peters. As always, thanks for listening. We got more great interviews coming your way. Keep it tuned in to us. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Icon Fetch with Tony Peters. Want more great interviews? Head over to iconfetch.com. There, you'll find every interview we've ever done, plus CD reviews, This Day in Music, and a random album of the day. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter. Who is Tony going to interview next? It could be you. Send what you've got to Tony Peters. Icon Fetch, P.O. Box 292134, Dayton, Ohio 45429. Or email Tony at host@iconfetch.com. Until next time, this is Joe Kelly. Have a great day.